Okay, let's now expand upon absolute values. Let's talk about now what happens, how you would evaluate if you had numbers within the absolute value, but just instead of having in the previous examples where I just said what was the absolute value of 4 or just some number, now we're going to expand upon that idea and say what is the absolute value if you were to add numbers, or what is the absolute value if you were to subtract numbers. Now, whenever you have an expression inside the absolute value, what you want to do first is try to simplify that expression as much as you can, then take the absolute value of that final result which you can't simplify anymore. So let's do an example to see exactly what I'm trying to say here. So for the first one, we have the absolute value of 5 plus 3. Now when I mean simplify the expression, I mean is there anything else we can do to simplify this as much as possible? And we can. We know how to add 5 plus 3. So what we do is we say this is the same thing as, we keep the absolute value because we can simplify it more, and we say what is 5 plus 3? That's 8. So now we can't simplify any further, right? Because you can't do anything more to this. So now you take the absolute value, and you take the absolute value of 8 being 8. We know that from the previous video. So just to recap quickly, we simplify the expression as much as possible, which we did here. We keep the absolute value because we could simplify it from this step to this step. But from here to here, we couldn't simplify anymore. So now we take the absolute value of the number inside. And we did that and we got 8. Let's do the next example. Again, we can simplify the expression inside, so we keep the absolute value symbol. We say, what is 2 minus 3? That's negative 1. Can we simplify this anymore? No, we can't. So what is the absolute value of negative 1? That's 1. So this is the final result. Now let's do an example where we have not only addition, but we also have subtraction as well. So let's look at this one. We have the absolute value of 7 plus 2 minus 10. So let's break this up into parts. So I'm just going to write it underneath to save some space so the camera can see. So let's just do this part here, 7 plus 2. 7 plus 2 is 9 minus 10. And we kept the absolute value because we can still simplify. We could still simplify further. So 9 minus 10 is negative 1. I kept the absolute value symbol. Why? Because I could still simplify from this step to this step. But now you can see we're left with an integer, negative 1. We can't simplify any further. So what happens is we take the absolute value of negative 1, which is 1. So the final result over there is 1. Finally, looking at this example, we do the same thing. So let's evaluate the first part. So underneath, we'll keep the absolute value because we can still simplify. So we have 6, because 5 plus 1 is 6, minus 6, absolute value. What is 6 minus 6? That's 0. So again, we keep the absolute value. What is the absolute value of 0? That's just 0. And remember, one way to think of the absolute value is it's the distance from the number line. So 0 is, it's the distance away from 0 on the number line. And since 0 is 0 away from itself, because it's the same number, that's equals to 0. So in the next video, I'll provide some examples which you should pause the video, try them yourselves, and then we'll go over them quickly.